For most passengers boarding Royal Caribbean's Independence of the Seas, the day looked like the start of a perfect summer getaway. The sun was out over Port Canaveral, Florida, the pool deck was filling up with vacationers in swimsuits, and the ship's signature sail-away party, with music, drinks, and the countdown to departure, was already underway. Nobody expected that within minutes, that same pool deck would turn into a scene passengers would later compare to a disaster movie. What happened next became one of the most watched cruise videos of the year, racking up millions of views on TikTok and Instagram, sparking a wave of media coverage from Newsweek to Fox News, and reigniting a debate that still follows the cruise industry. When the weather turns dangerous in seconds, whose job is it to warn the people on board? According to the official schedule, there was nothing unusual about this particular voyage. On Friday, June 16, 2023, Independence of the Seas, a Freedom-class ship built in 2008 and one of Royal Caribbean's staple vessels for short getaways, was scheduled for a routine 3-night itinerary out of Port Canaveral, Florida. The plan was simple and familiar to thousands of Florida cruisers every summer. Depart Friday afternoon, sail overnight, and arrive Saturday morning at Perfect Day at Coco Cay, Royal Caribbean's private island destination in the Bahamas, before returning to port on Monday. It was the kind of short, low-key cruise families book for a long weekend. No transatlantic crossings, no hurricane belt itineraries, nothing that would suggest passengers needed to brace for severe weather. The ship hadn't even left the dock yet. It was still docked at the terminal, engines idling, preparing to cast off, when everything changed. According to the National Weather Service, a severe thunderstorm warning had been issued for coastal Brevard County that afternoon, covering the window between roughly 3:45 and 4:15 p.m., with wind gusts forecast to exceed 60 miles per hour. For a region accustomed to sudden Florida summer storms, that alone wasn't remarkable. What made this one different was its speed and violence, and the fact that, according to passengers, nobody on board warned them it was coming. One passenger filming the sail-away party from the pool deck captured the storm rolling in real time. The footage shows a wall of rain and wind sweeping across the harbor, completely swallowing another cruise ship docked nearby within seconds. Then it hit Independence of the Seas itself. What followed was raw chaos. Deck chairs, the same loungers passengers had been relaxing on moments earlier, were ripped up and sent flying through the air like projectiles. Umbrellas cartwheeled across the pool deck, tables overturned, debris rained down onto walkways where people were still standing, caught completely off guard. In the videos that later went viral, passengers can be heard screaming as they scramble for cover, panic rising in their voices as people around them lose their footing on the rain-slicked deck. Others can be seen crawling on their hands and knees across the deck, unable to stand upright against the wind, desperately trying to reach a doorway or an overhang. One passenger, pushing a stroller with a baby cradled in her arms, narrowly avoided being struck as a lounge chair flew directly toward her, missing her and the empty stroller by what looked like inches. Elsewhere on the ship, passengers described a similar scene, people sliding across wet decks in a seated position because standing was too dangerous. Others pressed flat against railings and walls, gripping on tightly as gusts tore through the open-air areas of the ship. Another passenger who filmed the storm later described how quickly it engulfed the ship, noting that people on the lower pool deck were caught completely by surprise, with no announcement made beforehand. As fast as it arrived, the storm passed. Footage shared by one passenger showed the worst of the chaos lasting about 4 minutes, while the severe thunderstorm warning covering the port stayed in effect for 30. For the people caught in that first violent burst, it felt like an eternity. Remarkably, given the sheer force of the storm caught on camera, Royal Caribbean confirmed there were no serious injuries among guests or crew. In statements issued to multiple outlets, including Fox News, Fox Business, and Newsweek, the cruise line described the event as a sudden, brief gust of high winds while the ship was departing Port Canaveral, and said no guests or crew members suffered serious injuries. The company confirmed the ship went on to complete its scheduled itinerary without further disruption, arriving at Perfect Day at Coco Cay the following morning exactly as planned. That statement, however, did little to calm the passengers who had lived through it. Video after video posted online showed flying furniture striking people directly, a detail that made no serious injuries feel, to some viewers, almost too fortunate to be true. Minor injuries, bruises, and badly frayed nerves were widely reported by passengers, even if nothing rose to the level the cruise line was required to disclose. For many, the more lasting impact wasn't physical, it was psychological. Passengers described a jarring whiplash of emotions, sunbathing and sipping cocktails one moment, then physically fighting to stay upright and find shelter the next. Some compared the sudden shift to natural disaster footage they'd only ever seen on the news. One passenger's comparison to the tornado-chasing film Twister would end up echoed in headlines across the country. Another passenger recalled the storm swallowing a neighboring ship from view entirely before it reached them, giving them only seconds to react once they realized what was coming. If the storm itself was a matter of bad luck and Florida weather, what turned this into a lasting story, one that outlets kept revisiting for days afterward, was what passengers say happened next. Nothing. Multiple guests who posted their footage online complained that there was no announcement from the ship's crew or captain, either before the storm hit or after it passed. One widely shared video captured that exact sentiment, a passenger noting there had been no warning from the captain beforehand and no explanation afterward, as if the crew simply expected everyone to move on like nothing had happened. That clip, tagged with hashtags referencing the ship and the storm, became one of the central pieces of footage driving the story's spread across social media, eventually being viewed more than 4 million times. Other passengers echoed the frustration. Some said they only learned how serious the storm had been by watching other people's videos afterward, not from any communication by the crew. For a ship carrying thousands of guests, many of them families with small children on their first cruise, the silence struck several passengers as a serious oversight, regardless of how brief the company later characterized the event. That criticism sits at the heart of a broader question the cruise industry has faced again and again in recent years. Modern ships, with their advanced stabilizers and weather routing technology, are genuinely built to withstand far worse than a passing squall. The physical danger to the vessel itself was almost certainly minimal. But passengers aren't naval engineers, they're vacationers standing on an open deck when furniture starts flying past their heads, with no idea whether they should run, hide, or simply hold on. Whether cruise lines communicate clearly enough in those first critical moments, before, during, and after, remains the real unresolved issue at the center of stories like this one. In the end, the storm that hit Independence of the Seas on June 16, 2023, injured no one seriously, delayed nothing, and didn't even knock the ship off its published schedule. By Saturday morning, passengers were disembarking onto the white sands of Perfect Day at Coco Cay as if nothing had happened at all. But for the people who lived through those chaotic few minutes on the pool deck, sliding across wet floors, dodging airborne furniture, and clutching strangers' shoulders for balance, it was a stark, visceral reminder that even on a routine 3-night Bahamas run, the ocean can turn the mood from celebration to survival instinct in the time it takes a storm cloud to roll across the harbor.